If you took a time machine back 3,500 years to the height of the Illyrian kingdoms and grabbed a random Bronze Age warrior from the Albanian mountains, their DNA would be almost identical to someone walking through modern Tirana today. Despite 35 centuries of Roman conquest, Slavic invasions, Ottoman rule, and being surrounded by genetically different populations, Albanian genetics have remained virtually unchanged. And it doesn't just end there. Despite being conquered by Romans, invaded by Slavs, ruled by Ottomans for 500 years, and surrounded by genetically different populations, Albanian DNA shows something that defies everything we know about conquest and assimilation. They're not just survivors, they're the genetic ghosts of ancient Europe. But the most shocking discovery, recent ancient DNA analysis has proven that modern Albanians descend from Roman-era Western Balkan populations, with additional admixture from Slavic-related groups. Remarkably, Albanian paternal ancestry shows continuity from Bronze Age Balkan populations, including those known as Illyrians. And here's the plot twist that changes everything. The three haplogroups most strongly associated with Albanian people are EV13, R1b, and J2b-L283, all found in the Balkans since the Bronze Age. This supports the most controversial theory in European genetics, that Albanians aren't just descendants of the Illyrians, they are the Illyrians. Today we're cracking the code of one of Europe's most incredible genetic mysteries. How did a people maintain their genetic identity while being conquered by every major empire? Why do Albanian genetics challenge everything we thought we knew about European migration? And what does this genetic time capsule reveal about the true survivors of ancient Europe? So picture this. It's 2500 BCE. The Bronze Age is just beginning, and waves of migrations are reshaping Europe. The Yamnaya people from the Ukrainian steppes are moving into the Balkans, bringing horses, wheels, and Indo-European languages that will change the continent forever. But in the rugged mountains and coastal plains of what would become Albania, something extraordinary happens. The Yamnaya migrants, originally from what is now Ukraine and Russia, moved into the Balkans around 2500 BC. This migration gave rise to the Proto-Illyrians. Here's where it gets fascinating. While other European populations experienced multiple waves of migration, conquest, and genetic mixing, the Proto-Albanians found the perfect hiding place. The Albanian mountains became a genetic fortress, preserving Bronze Age DNA signatures that disappeared everywhere else in Europe. A large fraction of the Western Balkan post-2500 BC samples carry Y chromosomes belonging to the Yamnaya-specific haplogroup R1b-Z2103. This is as opposed to corded ware or bell beaker, two daughter Indo-European groups who expanded across Eastern and Western Europe respectively. What makes this incredible is that Albanians became the genetic time capsule of the Indo-European expansion, while their linguistic cousins spread across Europe, creating the ancestors of Greeks, Romans, Celts, and Germans. The Proto-Albanians stayed put and preserved the original genetic recipe. Modern Albanian genetics are essentially a 3,500-year-old snapshot of Bronze Age Europe, frozen in time by mountains, culture, and an almost supernatural ability to resist genetic conquest. Fast forward to the Roman conquest of the Balkans. Between 229 and 167 BCE, Rome systematically conquered the Illyrian kingdoms. This should have been the end of Illyrian genetic identity. The Romans were notorious for population displacement, settlement programs, and cultural assimilation. But Albanian genetics tell a different story entirely. The Romans conquered Albanian territory, built cities, established colonies, and ruled for over 600 years. Roman law, Roman culture, and Latin language dominated the region. You'd expect massive genetic mixing, right? Wrong. And the evidence is written in Albanian DNA. Modern Albanians descend from Roman-era Western Balkan populations, with additional admixture from Slavic-related groups. Remarkably, Albanian paternal ancestry shows continuity from Bronze Age Balkan populations, including those known as Illyrians. Here's what's incredible. The Romans didn't genetically conquer the Albanians. They coexisted with them. The genetic evidence suggests that Roman rule was more like a political overlay than a demographic replacement. Albanian mountains became genetic sanctuaries where Bronze Age bloodlines survived the rise and fall of the greatest empire in history. It's like discovering that a small mountain village somehow preserved medieval customs, while the entire world around them modernized. Albanian genetics did exactly that, but with DNA instead of traditions. The Roman period actually strengthened Albanian genetic identity by providing political stability that allowed these ancient bloodlines to flourish without being displaced by newer migrations. Now we get to the most surprising chapter in Albanian genetic history, the Slavic migrations of the 6th and 7th centuries CE. This was supposed to be the demographic apocalypse of the Balkans, massive waves of Slavic peoples moving south, displacing existing populations, and fundamentally changing the genetic landscape of southeastern Europe. The Slavs transformed the Balkans. They settled in Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and much of Greece. They brought new languages, new cultures, and new genes. If any event should have erased Albanian genetic identity, it was this. But Albanian DNA tells an almost impossible story. They survived the Slavic tsunami with their genetic identity largely intact. The latest ancient DNA studies show that Albanians do carry some Slavic admixture, but it's like finding a few drops of ink in a swimming pool. The fundamental Albanian genetic signature, that Bronze Age Illyrian foundation, remained unchanged. How is this possible? The Albanian mountains again. While Slavic peoples settled in the plains and river valleys, establishing agriculture and permanent settlements, the mountainous Albanian territories remained largely inaccessible and unattractive to large-scale settlement. Albanian genetics reveal something remarkable. They didn't just resist Slavic conquest. They selectively absorbed small amounts of Slavic DNA while maintaining their core genetic identity. It's like having an immune system that could distinguish between useful genetic contributions and threatening ones. Now let's talk about the most fascinating aspect of Albanian genetics, the EV13 haplogroup. This is where Albanian DNA becomes a detective story that spans continents and millennia. EV13, the most common European subclade of E1B1B1A, EM78, represents about 1/3 of all Albanian men and peaks in Kosovo, Thracians, 40%. But here's where it gets really interesting. EV13 is a genetic signature that connects Albanians to some of the most ancient populations in Europe and the Mediterranean. This haplogroup shows up in ancient Greek samples, in Neolithic Anatolian farmers, and in Bronze Age Balkan populations. Albanian genetics are like a genetic museum of Mediterranean and European ancestry. They carry DNA signatures that disappeared from most other European populations due to later migrations and mixing. The EV13 story suggests that Albanians aren't just descendants of one ancient population, they're descendants of multiple ancient Mediterranean peoples who found refuge in the Albanian mountains. Pelagians, Illyrians, Thracians, and other mysterious ancient peoples may all have contributed to the Albanian gene pool. It's like discovering that a remote mountain village has been secretly preserving the genetic heritage of entire lost civilizations. Albanian genetics don't just connect to the Illyrians, they connect to the foundational populations of European civilization itself. Now jump to 1385. The Ottoman Empire begins its conquest of Albanian territories, starting a period of rule that would last over 500 years. This was one of the longest periods of foreign domination in European history, involving massive cultural changes, religious conversion, and administrative integration into a vast multicultural empire. If any conquest should have left a major genetic footprint, it was the Ottoman period. Turkish administrators, soldiers, and settlers moved throughout the empire. Intermarriage was common. Islamic cultural practices encouraged broader marriage networks, but Albanian genetics pulled off their greatest disappearing act yet. Despite 500 years of Ottoman rule, Turkish and broader Middle Eastern genetic signatures in Albanian DNA are almost invisible. It's like finding that a house occupied by tenants for 5 centuries somehow preserved the original owner's furniture without a scratch. The genetic evidence suggests that Ottoman rule in Albania was primarily administrative and cultural rather than demographic. The Ottomans governed Albanians, but didn't replace them. Albanian mountain communities maintained their genetic isolation, even while adopting Islamic religion and Ottoman cultural practices. This reveals something remarkable about Albanian genetics. They developed the ability to separate cultural identity from genetic identity. Albanians could become Ottoman subjects, adopt Islamic practices, and integrate into imperial systems while maintaining their Bronze Age genetic heritage. Now here's where Albanian genetics gets really fascinating. While Albanians share a common genetic foundation, different regions of Albania tell slightly different genetic stories, each preserving unique aspects of ancient Balkan history. Northern Albania, particularly the Geg regions, shows the strongest connections to ancient Illyrian populations. Albanians, Gegs in particular, carry 90% plus of the old I lineages of Illyrians. These populations are like genetic time capsules, preserving the purest Bronze Age Balkan DNA signatures. Southern Albania shows more genetic diversity, with connections to ancient Greek populations and other Mediterranean groups. This suggests that different Albanian regions served as refugees for different ancient populations fleeing various conquests and migrations. The coastal regions show subtle influences from maritime trade connections, genetic signatures that suggest ancient contact with Italian, Greek, and other Mediterranean populations through trade rather than conquest. But here's the amazing part. Despite this regional diversity, all Albanian populations share that fundamental genetic signature connecting them to Bronze Age Balkan peoples. It's like finding regional dialects of the same ancient genetic language. Albanian genetics reveal that the country served as a genetic archipelago, a collection of mountain refugees where different aspects of ancient European genetic diversity could survive independently while maintaining connections to their common Illyrian foundation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do like and subscribe to our channel Medieval Mind for more videos like this.